Welcome to Growth Strategies on Demand with AirDeck. This week's episode is about culture-driven sales, featuring Adam J., VP of Sales at SponOn Transact. First question, what is the importance of culture in sales?
Culture in sales is critically important. With a negative culture or toxic culture, people not only aren't going to work for your company because word gets out, you're going to have such high attrition rates that you're not even going to be able to keep the people you have. It's really important that not only do you have a positive culture, but you have a positive culture that directly relates to high-performing sales teams. And you do that by ensuring that you're focusing on a team mentality instead of an individual, everyone for themselves mentality.
What is a mistake that sales managers often make when managing sales teams?
The biggest mistake that I see sales managers make is focusing solely on the metrics and believing that the metrics are how you coach your rep. For example, it's very easy to say, Jonathan, quota is 6 wins. You only had 4 wins. You're not hitting quota. Things need to change. And then you get off the phone, Jonathan's demotivated, and no one really wins because you're just looking at the metrics. Or, Jonathan, we expect you to do 50 walk-ins per day, and you only log 20 walk-ins. That's unacceptable. You have to use the metrics to tell a story. So a different way of approaching that is, Jonathan, you only did 20 walk-ins today, but the goal is 50. Walk me through, kind of what you did today. And what you might find out is that Jonathan only did 20 walk-ins, but he had 20 solid conversations. You can't focus on just the metrics. You have to focus on the story behind the metric.
How do you foster a positive team environment in sales?
The best way to foster a positive team environment in sales is to celebrate the successes, to praise in public, and to coach in private. All too often, sales managers make the mistake of bringing negative feedback into a group setting or a group meeting. And while you certainly could hold people accountable to performance in group settings, it should never be done in a way that's demeaning. You should always praise people for going above and beyond, praise people for hitting their numbers, and praise people for doing well in public settings. But that constructive criticism, that coaching, and that feedback should be done in private settings. That's really important when you're looking to create that positive team environment. In addition to that, you need to give people increasing roles of responsibility so they feel that they're part of the team, part of the culture, and part of the mission. And you do that by empowering people to make decisions that are going to affect their business without having to check with their manager for every single decision. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to allow a rep to discount 95% off without the appropriate approvals. But it does mean that you're going to set discount thresholds that allow your reps to have some type of leeway so they feel that they're empowered to make the business decisions that are best for their business.
How do you identify high-performing sales hires?
There's a couple ways to identify high-performing sales hires during the interview process. And there's a few things that I believe you should interview for when you're looking to do so. Number one is work ethic. I tell people all the time, I can teach you our product. I can teach you how to sell. I can't teach you to get up out of bed every day and go to work. Give me some examples of how you define work ethic and how you've demonstrated work ethic in the past. Number two is coachability. That's why everyone in sales likes athletes, right? Because they're coachable. They've worked on a team. They've received feedback and coaching. When it comes to sales hires, it's the exact same thing. You have to have someone who's coachable. You have to have someone who's willing to learn. One of the questions I ask all the time is, tell me about the last thing you took it upon yourself to learn that was not work related. What I'm looking for is, are they a lifelong learner? Do they like to learn about things? Do they want to teach themselves new things? And then the other is what I call the GSD factor, and that's the get stuff done factor, right? At the end of the day, I want someone who's going to roll up their sleeves, who's going to dig in, and who's going to do whatever it takes to get stuff done. Give me an example of a time where you didn't have any resources, or you had very limited resources, and you had to think outside of the box to get stuff done and make things happen.
In what ways can sales leaders motivate their sales teams?
There's a few key ways that sales leaders can best motivate their sales teams. First, focus on activities instead of results. That doesn't mean live by the metrics as we talked about earlier, but positive activities will lead to positive results. And you have to acknowledge the positive activities versus just looking at the fact that results aren't necessarily where they need to be. Number two, we talked about, you want to praise in public. Make sure that you're praising people for what they do and that you're doing it in front of others. Number three, it's okay to blur the lines between being a manager or a leader and being an employee. An example of that, I was in Orlando the other week with my 9-year-old son, and we met up with one of my managers and his wife, and we spent the whole day together at a theme park. It creates that culture and that camaraderie and makes people feel like they're part of a family. Number four is transparency. Tell it like it is, be honest. People appreciate that. Don't be rude when you do it, but you need to be transparent and honest with people, and people should always know where they stand with you, be it positive or negative. And that leads to number five, which is radical candor. At the end of the day, you have to be 100% honest, 100% transparent, 100% of the time. And that's being radically candid, right? You want to tell the truth. You want to let people know where they stand. You want to be honest. As long as you do it with respect and you do it consistently, your team members are going to know that they can always count on you to deliver the truth.
Thank you to our guest on this week's episode. If you want to be featured, contact sales@airdeck.co with a brief explanation of why you think you'd be a good fit for the series. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growth Strategies webinar series brought to you by AirDeck. Stay tuned for more episodes coming soon, featuring top sales and marketing professionals around the world.